Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship. I am Captain Frodo, and as always, I will be your gracious host and guide along the way. And we're on this trip, and we're back on the trip after a tale around a campfire last episode. So now we're going to do a quick recap of where we were at. We are exploring showmanship as a form of play. And in the last episode we talked about this. We talked about my little dog Teddy and me going for a run. And the reason we did that, we didn't actually go for a run. We ran a lot. But the key thing that we did in the forest, it is playing. We did it, and we're doing it. We did it today, actually. And we talked about how my dog bends over and bows, and invites me to play. Because, as we said, play is a voluntary thing that you do. You can't be forced to play. If somebody forces you to do something, then that thing is, by definition, not play. And so that means that play is a state of being which is different than ordinary life. The things that we do when we play are not being done to do something else. We're playing because play is fun, because we want to be in it. And there is so we also talked about how when we play, after the dog has bowed and we've engaged in play, then he is constantly looking at me to make sure that no rules are. Let's say I'm pushing him around and then he bites me, maybe a little bit harder, or maybe I'm just yanking my hand because he bit me on some little wound that I had, and then he will immediately think, oh, I broke the rules, the game is over. Did the world just change back into being real life and I just bit my beloved master? Of course, that wasn't what happened, and we go back into play. But that shows that we can dip in and out of play. It's a state that sort of exists outside of normal life, which already here can tinkle those bells, I hope, the metaphorical bells of that. This is what happens in a show as well. There's something here, like we can switch into the imaginative way of relating to the world, and we can switch back out of it again. So, if rules are broken, then that game can stop. And this also just draws our attention to the fact that there are rules within games. There are ways to behave that's acceptable and ways that are not. And if you behave outside of those things, the game, in a sense, ceases to exist. Like if you play soccer and all of a sudden somebody grabs the ball and runs over and throws it in the goal, the game has, in a sense, then ceased to exist. Much to the consternation of the people gathered, both on the court and watching in the stands. So there also we talked about how this could be, there's certain places that are more playful than others, and I'd say any kind of, like if you're in a forest or in nature, or you can play anywhere, but there are certain places that are more conducive to it. If you're at playing at outside some shopping center where it's all concrete and glass and that, or you're playing inside some government building, not the ideal place for playing, not the place that makes you most excited. So as we were coming to an end, it's kind of the last episode we were talking about how what is it that makes something play then? Like, what is it that makes when I'm pushing the dog in one way, he gets afraid, and when I'm pushing him in another way, when we're engaged in play, then he gets scared? Well, a lot of it has to do with intention. He knows that we are sharing an intention of behaving in a different way. And this intention, this is another key part of what we talked about last time and what play is for a dog. So, with that little wrap-up of a few minutes, it's time to delve in to the next chapter of play. So, the 5 criteria of play. We're going to get to those after we've spoken a little bit about how Saskia plays, my daughter. So this is child's play, and we're going to oppose that to a little bit, or it's got slightly different aspects than dog play. Because when I watch my daughter, who's 10, well, she was when I wrote this anyway, watch her at the beginning of a game with a friend, they don't perform the sort of dog bow play signal. They don't bend forward as if they're about to pray or whatever. They usually just say, "Do you want to play?" Or, "You want to play with little soft toys?" Which they often do, which is my daughter's term for all the little soft my-leg mice with their matchbox beds. My-leg is some Danish brand of soft, small toy mice and rabbits, even pigs apparently as well now, which she has loved all of her life. And that she loves small 5 to 10 centimeter tall toys with furniture and inflatable rubber boats and living wagons has been a very lucky thing, because if she loved big dolls and child-sized kitchen sets, it would have been hard to tour with, but that's very much an aside. But still, the reality of play in my life. So with certain friends, the fact that they are going to play goes unspoken. They just launch into it without any preamble. It's as natural as breathing. When they were younger, even just a couple of years ago, the play was a given for all of them. But at 10, or now at 11, she's turned 11 now, some of the kids are well on their way out of the kingdom of childhood. The kingdom of childhood is something that I talked about in episode 14, if you want to expand your understanding of the kingdom of childhood and how we adults have colonized it, constantly push into the kingdom of childhood. But let that be as it may. With all the besties of my daughter, they of course they're going to play. Of course they're going to play. They sit down and start picking out toys, and the game proper hasn't begun yet, but this selection process, digging through the toy boxes, is certainly part of the play. It's all taking shape and coming into being as they pull out the many toys and the things which will become part of the game. Rules are being shaped and negotiated as characters are coming to life and roles are being assigned. They don't know exactly what the game is yet, because this particular variation of this game does not exist yet, and once it's done, it will never exist exactly like this again. The game comes into being as it is played. As soon as the toys are chosen, relations are being created, scenarios springs into being between rabbits and mice, old champagne corks and human-sized old colorful sock. A complex living web emerges from free association and improvisation. All key things to look out for as we go on. So one might make the suggestion, "Let's play that I am this little rabbit," and the other replies, "Yes, and I am this dog, and you are my baby, and this was our car." And the game invitation is accepted, and the game reality is taken seriously, even though they both know it's pretend. They're both adding to the game and playing the game and setting up the rules and discovering it all in one enjoyable process. They don't play because they want to learn about relationships or anything else. They play because it's enjoyable in itself. They don't play because they want to learn about relationships or they don't want to learn about anything. They play because it's enjoyable in itself. They're playing for the sheer fun of it. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes before the girls get a game started and the play experience is complete. And other times it's practically instantaneous. It's a tender, exciting period. Everything is possibilities, which and what will be made real out of all the stuff that's lying around. This, I think, is how true play starts, true imaginative play. It's voluntary and self-motivated. Any child can fall into play at any time, but as any parent knows, if you try to make them play whilst waiting for the bus or to stop them nagging you, it's nigh on impossible to make them play. Only by playfully inviting and enticing them into a game do you have any chance of making it happen. To end, let me note how similar this is to what we show folks do in the beginning of our shows. We're offering up an enticing opportunity which beckons the audience to enter into it with us. We're extending an invitation to play. Of course, if we go back to us who have who are a little bit familiar with the Showman's Manifesto, which I've talked about, where I talk about a showman on a market square that sort of creates a universe. This is what happens in a street show in particular. You go out there and you're inviting them playfully to stop. You got that little shine in your eye and going, hey, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you in the moment? Are you here with me? And this is sort of what happens with my dog, or with any dog, where if you come in and you start to relate and actually see the dog in the moment, they all of a sudden you appear on the map for them. It's like, oh, here's a person. And I have this tendency, I do love dogs, and they come and sit next to me. It's about being in the moment, and extending that invitation to play is to be there together in the moment. So in England in particular, what I do is sometimes called a novelty act. Like if you squeeze yourself through a tennis racket, if you have a large plank of wood with 17 cats that makes noise when you squeeze on them, if that's what you do, you make music with a cat organ, then you are a novelty act. So now there's a strong, interesting connections between play and novelty, and newness. So when my daughter plays, she keeps pushing forward, out and past situations that she knows. Like after watching a Harry Potter movie, she immediately wants to play Harry Potter. But her play, be it with her soft toy mice, her Lego, or a combination of everything, it never, in her play, never really retells the story. It uses the characters and the elements of the world as a springboard, much like in a dream, I sometimes think, where you start out and this is Hermione and this is Harry, and they're going over there, and this is their very large turtle that they ride on, and the turtle is actually Harry's long lost brother, who has been turned into a turtle. So immediately, like you go, and everyone accepts these things. So in that way, it's kind of like a dream where you start in one end and then everything else gets added to it. But the situation that she gets most engaged in when she's playing are wholly of her own creation. They are completely novel situations. In fact, part of what's attractive with them is that they are novel. She's pushing into the unknown. Like what happens when Hagrid and Hermione, I can't even say it, when Hermione's younger sister goes off into the swampy forests and the lakelands behind Hogwarts. This game actually happened behind our house in Norway. It did. And the only things in that game which existed in the real Potterverse was Hagrid and Hogwarts. Hermione's little sister was specifically made up to avoid having to play within the narrow confines of Hermione's age and particular personality. And the play my daughter engages in the most is when it is completely open. So a common feature in her play is to set up rules that will allow for transgressions of whatever rules or features that will fence her in. A Barbie car, which is enormous for her little mice, is easily included in the game. And a Beanie Boo, which is a type of toy again, like a sloth toy that she has, it's brought in from nowhere to drive it. Because obviously you need somebody bigger, so although this animal normally is not part of the game, now it's required to drive the car. So the size or the types of toy doesn't matter as long as it serves to continue whatever plot is unfolding in the game. They have one game in mind, but they're ready at any time to expand it or to change the game. Serious about the game, but ready to change at any moment. If this is not ringing bells back to what Nalla was talking about in the Clown Manifesto, then I don't know. So this is a key, this changing and taking the game seriously, but also being open to it changing. She also doesn't know the end of the game. She's playing for the love of being in it, and she doesn't want it to stop. But it is also endlessly interesting to her precisely because of the imaginative impact the endless improvisation has. She too is discovering what happens next. Sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes it's scary. It happens that she plays herself into a corner and gets a bit scared. and has to deliberately play herself out of it again. Say Hagrid gets stuck in a swamp and a bog kraken comes to pull him down into the oozy sludge, and all of a sudden the kraken turns out to be friendly and only looks scary. Or, before you know it, the tentacles are actually sparkly and is wearing a knitted yellow cardigan with 8 sleeves. Just like that, the fear subsides and the game continues. But up until that moment, the kraken had been a menace. She had no plans for dressing up the kraken. It simply happened. The moment just asked for it. She became uncomfortable with what she had done, and all of a sudden it changes. As much as she made it up, that detailed, it happened in the game, almost like she was reading it in a book. It was something that happened to her as much as it was something that she decided to do. All kids' games, if left free and unhindered, has these features. And I'm talking then about games, not like soccer or so, that has its own games, but we'll talk more about that. But like free imaginative games, that's what I'm saying, they're free and unhindered. They have these features because they're not just going over and repeating what they have seen. They're imaginatively engaging in an exploration of what lies beyond what they already know and have seen. Their approach allows them to fall into novel territory, adjacent possibles, and whole universes of what if. And when I say free and unhindered, I mean a game where the rules are not too stringent. Sometimes two kids might get together and their ideas of how a game might be played diverges from reality, or how the rules laid down by some of the characters of a book or a film or whatever. And you know that maybe they need to be bent, because if they don't bend them, then the game can stagnate. If they follow the rules too much, the games frequently comes to what the kids experience as a premature end. Further, if the imaginative, improvisational aspect of the game is hindered, the game might not even get off the ground, and they experience this as boring. As soon as the game gets boring, the game ends. Or one kid is in the midst of a game, but maybe they've been bossing the other one a little bit too much and telling them what they can and can't do, and all of a sudden that other kid who was just moving some stuff out of the way found a book and started reading. Boom, game is over. The experience is boring and you're not motivated to play. The game just ceased. So, I see in this kid's natural desire to play, the kind of game that they're playing is what James Carse calls infinite games. Like, we're going to talk more about that later on, but James Carse says there are at least 2 types of games: the finite game and the infinite game. The finite game is played to be won, and the infinite game is played to continue playing. The reason why I'm thinking that the kid's natural desire to play is like an infinite game is that the reason why they play is that you're just going to continue to play. That's the goal of the game, not to win it. The rules in these kinds of games, like if you're following them too stringently, then it gets the sort of inbuilt features of finite games that you can win, that the others can tell you that you can do or can't. And if the rules are solid, then you can play to win. And the adventurers, they seek a treasure and then they find it, and if you find the treasure, then that's very often, that could be the end of the game, done. But what the kids really want is to play. It's to be in it. They want it to last, and for it to last, the rules must be transgressed. Bent and novel things like cheery krakens and cardigans must be allowed to enter the game. Without the persistent experience of being smack bang at the center of an unfolding, something which is happening right there and then, chances are the game ends. The best and most engaging play happens when the game gets to the edge of the rules, and then through the events unfolding in the game, the rules are transgressed. Sometimes these moments can be mind-blowing for the children. They have gotten right to the edge of the rules, and when all of a sudden something new enters the game, the soft toy mice are so small that they have to jump to look over an orange, encounters a huge blue car. It's way too big for them. From the outside, I see that the game has moved off the rug, the soft rug where it sort of started, and into the hallway, where there is a shelf with some of her other toys. Among them, the big, blue, unauthorized, made-in-China knockoff car that she bought at Savers in Las Vegas, and we carried it with us to Norway when the pandemic forced us to leave. And in the game, I think the mice are on holiday or when they encounter the enormous car. She's in the territory of Jonathan Swift's hero Gulliver and his travels to the land of giants. She has successfully, my daughter, has successfully created a moment of huge drama. The mice, which all share the same scale and their accessories are all sized to fit them, then they see the huge blue car, and in reality, it's been within the sight of my daughter all the time, but then the mice, as you know, they've traveled by an absolute chance. They arrive at the shelf, and it becomes clear to the girl who's playing and the mice that it's like they see this car. It's standing right there. Next to it stands another toy. And there's a plant on the shelf above, and there's a lantern with a candle in it that has a door that can be unlocked and open. And the lantern has been in many games, never as a lantern, but as a prison and also as a spaceship. But today the lantern is invisible to the mice. They only see the oversized car, and boom, rules are exploded. Transgression has happened. The game has transcended, and she's into novel territory again. How are they going to drive this car? I mean, spoiler alert, because I got the wrong end around here, so this sloth is going to come into it, but how that happened, you're going to have to imagine yourself, play yourself into it. So this is why adult-controlled or teacher-steered play isn't actually play. It is an activity that's related to play, but it's not really play. It's a finite game. It's not an infinite game. It's a game, in a classroom when a teacher says, today we're going to play shops and learn about the use of money. Then it's dead in the water. It stops being play for so many reasons. For a starter, they all have to play. And real play is something which comes from within. It's not imposed from the outside. It can respond to the outside, but this needs to be organic and spring from the children. And when a teacher corrects the game by pointing out that this or that behavior isn't allowed, whatever play that had spontaneously erupted, like something fun had started to happen in the shop, and the teacher goes, no, that's not allowed, as long as that is not a negotiable thing. When everyone thinks it's fun, that the rules of the game has been met and transgressed. Maybe they know that it's not allowed to do that thing, but when the teacher says no, then they snuff it out like a candle. The game, whatever, it almost was play there, but then the teacher goes, no. So when the teacher states that they are going to play to learn about money, she's also saying that this is not real play, because play is played for the love of playing, not to learn. We're not playing to learn, we're playing to play because it's fun. I could go on, but I will hold back. So, we've spent last episode, and well, not the last one, one before last, because last one was the anniversary 100 show episode, and we all followed Showman to the new world. And now we've spent, anyway, this will be the second episode where we trying to understand what play is, but it is a little bit, as it turns out now, it is hard to define what play is. In fact, defining play is a little bit like pinning a butterfly, and I guess that's what I'm going to talk about now, talking about what play is, or how defining play is like pinning a butterfly. Because we've now looked at me playing with a dog, we've had a peek into my daughter playing, and this is what play looks like. But from those descriptions, it's still not easy to draw out the definition, since there are so many kinds of play. And to make it more complicated, the word itself takes on different meanings when combined with other words, many of which on the surface has little to do with the kind of play that we've just described, so still probably rather vague and hard to grasp, even though until we asked the question, what is play, we knew what it was. Because it does not come as a surprise that when we consult the dictionary, we find pages and pages of definitions for all kinds of different aspects of play, like to engage in an activity for enjoyment and recreation rather than serious or practical purpose, as one definition, and to amuse oneself by engaging in imaginative pretense, or take part in a sport, that's another form of play, or to represent a character in a play, performance or film, and many more, literally pages. And to add to this, getting back to this, to the plurality of meanings of the word play, it's when it's coupled with other words, like I mentioned before, like to play something down means to represent something as less important than what it actually is. Oh yeah, I fell over now, but it wasn't painful. This limp I over has had that. Whilst playing something up can mean both to exaggerate the importance of something, as it can also, if a kid is playing up, then it means that they're misbehaving. So you can play something down, you can play it up, but you can also play with something. We can play on words, or we can play off something, or we can wait to see how a situation plays out. So you can play out or off or on or up or down, or you can play possum, you can play dumb, play the flute, or just play it cool. If something is a definite thing, it's pretty easy to define. A brick is a rectangular block of fired clay, and a chair is a separate seat for one person, or perhaps more poetically, it's a gift of rest for one weary traveller. Whilst when we are dealing with things which actually aren't things, but rather processes, as we've spoken about at length, it is harder to define. If I had to describe it, one aspect that I find important is that it's a way to do things. It's an intentional attitude one can have whilst doing virtually anything. We looked at running before. I was in the last episode where we said that if me and Teddy, like if sometimes when I run, it's for play, and sometimes when I run, it's to run for the bus, and it's not play, it's just annoying. But we looked at running, and kids can run like mad when they're playing. But if they are made to run for a fitness test at school, that same activity, same amount of running, turns into a cruel and unusual punishment. You can run playfully or seriously or painfully. Your mindset changes the nature of the thing. Just like how the pains you get after a hard session at the gym would be debilitating and super scary if they arrived out of nowhere as part of some sudden onset medical issue. And the characteristics of play are so plentiful that it's hard to pin down, because pinning down is in a sense what a definition does to something complex like life, art, or play. Much like how we pin a butterfly down to place it on display allows us to grasp certain aspects of the butterfly's nature, like its beautiful colors and its intricately detailed face and proboscis. Is that how you proboscis? It's probably how it is, that little sort of elephant-like trunk that they can roll out and stick into flowers and whatnot. Whilst when you pin the butterfly down, killing it, other facets becomes impossible to spot. When the butterfly is pinned down, it becomes a thing, whilst really it is a process. Like life is a process. The butterfly has the fact that it is alive means that it is a process. Food is going in one end to continue the out of equilibrium state that the butterfly is in. It's on its way to becoming dead, but as long as food goes in and excrement goes out the back and enough energy is coming in, then life will continue. The process will continue. So if you pin down anything that is a process, then we tend to lose sight of all those features which shows it as a part of a greater whole. A butterfly is a living, breathing, interconnected organism with so many different relations to flowers, birds, the sun, and the summer, and even in fleeting relations, like when it catches the attention of Teddy, like my dog. He might notice one and start running after it, and that could be the end of the butterfly process, but it very, very rarely is. If we're out walking in the forest or whatever. So, in defining something, we are foregrounding certain aspects which necessarily backgrounds others. So, to get some grasp of what play is, the solution that most experts, scholars, and play advocates use is not so much using one definition to catch everything, but it's rather to describe play using a list of criteria. And the list of criteria then is a bit more open-ended. Each point can be related to each other and be seen in the light of each of the others. And there are many different variations and elements which are included or excluded in the many versions of these lists of definitions of play. But the following list, the following 5 that I have selected, have such broad agreement amongst experts and scholars that if any activity does not contain most, if not all, of these characteristics, then it is not play. So, we're getting here to the end of it, and as we go through these 5, we will see that we've already spoken about all of them. But having them as a list, having them as 5 different aspects of play, will help us as we go on to try to pin this living butterfly of play down. Criteria 1, most important perhaps, is that play is fun. It's intensely pleasurable and enjoyable, so when we play, we don't want it to stop. Play is fun, intensely pleasurable, enjoyable. We do it because we love it. So when we play, we don't want it to stop because it's nice. Criteria 2, and we've talked about this, play is self-motivated, which means that it has to be entered into voluntarily. And of course, they're sort of, we can see already that they're sort of interconnected and everything. In the next episode, we're going to talk in detail about some of these things, but we see already that it's self-motivated because it is fun, because it is pleasurable and enjoyable. That's why we want to do it. So it's motivated from inside ourselves. We're driven, and we're not driven. We're sort of pulled towards it. Is probably more what I want to say. So we enter into it voluntarily. So this is the third criteria, is that play is apparently purposeless. And we say apparently here because it's not purposeless. It has all sorts of benefits, but the play is, in the moment, it's purposeless except for the actual play itself. We play for the sake of playing, not to achieve some further goal. Criteria 3, to just read it out loud, without interjecting with details, is that play is apparently purposeless. We play for the sake of playing, not to achieve some further goal. Criteria 4, we've touched upon with the dog, where we could break the rules. We have touched upon it with the changing and permeability of rules and the pushing of rules. That's in Saskia's games. And criteria 4 is just play has rules. We're going to talk about that in detail, but like we talked about, the person who grabs the soccer ball with their hand and throws it into the goal has made the game of soccer kind of disappear. It's the rules of the game is what makes the game exist at all. And the 5th and final of these criteria is that play is imaginative and improvisational. Play is imaginative and improvisational. So I'll just read through these one more time to let them percolate for the next 2 weeks until we meet again. 1. Play is fun. It's intensely pleasurable and enjoyable. So when we play, we don't want it to stop. 2. Play is self-motivated, which means it has to be entered into voluntarily. 3. Play is apparently purposeless. We play for the sake of playing, not to achieve some further goal. 4. Play has rules. 5. Play is imaginative and improvisational. So, the little tinkling bells of metaphor is probably, or hopefully, dingling and ringing in a beautiful way in your mind now as you're seeing this through the lens of showmanship and seeing how it becomes almost like a little list that we could do well with keeping in mind when we are doing our shows. So, that'll be all for today. So, the 5 criteria of play. We're going to come back to that a lot and see how they relate to showmanship in greater detail. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. It goes into quite a lot of detail here, and hopefully you'll be able to find enjoyment in it. Until next time, the only thing I'd like you to do is to tell a friend. Tell a friend of what we're doing here. Maybe they might be interested. Maybe tell a friend that you didn't even think that they might like it. Sometimes people that you know, you might not know them as well as you think you do. Maybe you think that this person is a shallow person that doesn't like to think anything deeper about their performance, or their performance style, or how they should see themselves as a performer in the world. But maybe you were wrong. Tell someone you like, or tell someone you don't like. Maybe they will enjoy it as much as you do. And until next time, take care of yourself and those you love, and I hope to see you along the way.